Hello and welcome to the NEWSPASTE Podcast with me, your host, Johnny Vedmore, back here again. I've had to take a little bit of time off the podcast. I've been planning and executing the plan. A plan to make a documentary series, which we'll talk about later. And is nearly done, and I wanted it done by Christmas, so I had to put in a lot of effort. And this is going to be a different podcast than usual. I think I may have done a solo about episode 10 or 11, where I just laid down, okay, this is where I am and what's happening at the moment, and this is where we're going in the future. And it's quite important. I got a few articles coming up. I've got an article coming out in UK Column very soon that is about the spy games. It's about the one of the people linked with Sergei Skripal and Christopher Steele Salisbury poisoning, but basically the Pablo Miller. And I've gone back a little bit in history and started digging away at the place where he worked when he got exposed as being a spy by the Russians. And so I discovered some stuff, and that will be coming out soon on UK Column, anytime within the next week. I don't know quite when. And I have a couple of other articles in the works. To be perfectly honest, and people who know my work will know, for instance, with the Pottinger series, that I had probably about 8 months of research and writing for that to get done. I mean, I do loads of stuff in between, of course, and I mix it up. But you can't kind of just like find everything, because a lot of it takes time of logical thinking. When you're investigating on this level, when you're an investigative journalist like I am, it's funny to say that, because really, the only thing that makes me an investigative journalist is that I can do it and not die, and that's almost changing, because really, either I'm going to run out of funds soon, or I'm going to become too tricksy for the powers that be. So it's either death or glory with this game, I'm afraid. And lots of my work is going, into places where the powers that be don't want you to go. So I have a lot of things happen in my life. I have had for the past few years that are bizarre, esoteric, sometimes just downright dirty behavior by people who want to get close to me as well, want to find out what I'm working on, and etc., for whatever reasons. So I go through a lot of weird stuff, and I have been through a lot of weird stuff. And to be honest, I mean, if we're doing this podcast as kind of a part of it is a review of the year, well, it's been a big year for me, a really big year. I've gone solo. I had to go solo. I was forced to go solo, so I don't mind that. NEWSPASTE was a really important moment to create NEWSPASTE.com and to concentrate on NEWSPASTE as an entity, to create the NEWSPASTE podcast that you're listening to now, to create NEWSPASTE, to refine NewsHound to be the beast it is. Also other developments. I've gone through a few shows this year where I started creating something and then it didn't work out, or it kind of like there was issues with it or problems with it. That happened with NEWSPASTE. It's too visceral, just way too visceral. And it was too stressful as well. It's too stressful. I'm already doing a load of stressful things. I was sticking another stressful thing on top. So I've taught people how to do what I was doing with NEWSPASTE, so they can go off and do that if they are careful and don't mind the risk, because there is risk attached in doing anything like any of this work. but I'm focusing on two things. I'm focusing on content creation of my journalistic endeavors and my journalistic endeavors. Those two things are what I'm concentrating on. And so that's why News Theory was a good idea. And News Theory, I've done 2 episodes, and that is definitely going to continue. It'll probably be monthly, but really, it's more like once I've found something that I want to look at, something that is being labeled or termed a conspiracy theory, that has the right sort of dynamics in play. That's what I want to do. I want to create with News Theory. It's about looking at a conspiracy theory, what's considered a conspiracy theory. Like the first one was the Great Reset was a conspiracy theory. This is something Andrew Marr put forward, that the Great Reset was the conspiracy theory, the one created by Klaus Schwab. But there's a twist on it, and it's kind of like to try and counteract the negative public reaction and PR disaster that was the launch of the Great Reset. But it just looks completely and utterly contrived, this fight back. To call it a conspiracy theory now is 5th generation warfare when you enter into that stuff. And if you're playing 5th generation warfare, then you want to watch yourselves, because soon people will mess up your mind. People can think they can play 5th generation warfare, but when you enter into the lands of the absurd, you only find absurdity. So, and the second one was on Palestine, whether Palestine really existed, and really I come out of that with a better understanding of Palestine than I've ever had before, because I went and researched it, of course, but I went and researched it in a way that was creating a documentary film, a short one. With those and with a lot of what I'm doing, I want to try and I've been weighing up this idea, the element of breaking down a larger story into sections that are bite-sized and manageable, yet and have enough hook to be able to get people to take in the information and learn the history, and for there to be a point to them learning that, there being a reason for them to learn that. So it's not just about going back and learning history, it's about learning history and then discovering why you needed to learn history. That's a little bit different than just a history program. And so I want to do stuff like that. Now, Audit Everything is much more summer endeavor, spring, summer, autumn, when I can go out and it's not raining or completely and utterly freezing cold, and there's actually people outside and stuff. As it got colder, people got spicier. The last Audit Everything was a super spicy one where I got attacked by the homeless guy. And I went through a process of, going into stressful situations makes you make set of stressful responses, set of stressful decisions that you might not make otherwise. So, with Audit Everything, I'm trying to be much more take it on the chin when things go heavy or things go crazy, and not be too pissed off about it. It's hard because sometimes someone like attacking you in the street in your hometown is a bit annoying. But that's what I'm there for. I'm there to document how people react and how people play the game of life. And so Audit Everything's kind of like taking a little break, and that's allowed me to enter into this new project. And the new project, not News Theory now, a new project is very important. Like things like NEWSPASTE I can do on the side of anything that I do, because it's just a quick sit down and watch the news, and I'm watching the news and just pausing and having a joke and a laugh about. So it's not so serious. The NEWSPASTE podcast is a little bit hard because I got to get in a good stream of guests, and I don't want it to get contrived. I don't want to get on people for the sake of getting on people. I'm trying to get on people that I want to speak to for numerous reasons, but that does limit my pool of people who I want to speak to. Now, I have had some interesting characters, very interesting characters contact me to be on, and I'm very interested in seeing where things go. But I think I've got to, with this podcast, I've got to make sure that I keep it with integrity, the integrity that it's got from the start, where it is no holds barred. We on some of the episodes I've talked about stuff with people that you're not really allowed to talk about, and normally you would be heavily censored, but it seems like the audio podcast realm is a place where you're allowed to speak. It's very strange how these forums exist. These forums exist, and some forums you say something and you'll be banned, and you go to another forum and you won't be banned, yet they're basically run by the same people, and they have the same people listening and taking in the information. So it's very strange. The world of the internet especially is quite hard to work out what's going to be in the future. Now, so I've started off this series, and it's called Searching for Stanley. Now, you can already go and see, if you're a Patreon, you can already go and see the first couple of episodes, or a couple of drafts, not full necessarily, of the series. The Orlando Letelier one's already up. Gloria Steinem, the Wounded Knees just gone up. You can see the Martin Luther King, a part of the Martin Luther King section. And what I'm trying to do is, well, everybody knows I've written the Pottinger Identity. If you're into my work, you would have known I've written the Pottinger series. So about Stanley Pottinger, one of the lead lawyers in the Epstein case, and you got the Pottinger Identity, the Pottinger Supremacy, and the Pottinger Ultimatum. And if you haven't read them, very quickly, Stanley Pottinger, who's one of the lead lawyers, or was one of the lead lawyers for victims of Jeffrey Epstein, also knew Jeffrey Epstein, lived very close to Jeffrey Epstein, and when you research his life, you discover a lot more. You discover that he was involved in the cover-up of Watergate, of the assassination of Martin Luther King, of the Kent State Massacre. He was involved in the COINTELPRO deal, and he was a friend of Bush and the CIA, and Orlando Letelier got killed, and he was heavily involved in that. And then the standoff at Wounded Knee he was involved in, while everything else was going on at Watergate. With Watergate, he was put to be involved in that, and that the state really prosecuted, and you could say persecuted, the American Indian movement through that. And then he went on to do Iran-Contra with Jeffrey Epstein, the October surprise to get his mate George Bush in power. And then he goes off to become an author once he gets discovered as being central to Iran-Contra, writes a load of books, lives right down the road, literally a neighbor of Jeffrey Epstein at this point with his family. And then later on becomes the lead lawyer for Epstein's victims. And that's a very interesting story in itself. Now, you can already read the Pottinger Identity, the Pottinger Supremacy, and the Pottinger Ultimatum. You can already look through the news hounds to learn about Stanley Pottinger. But discovering who Stanley Pottinger shouldn't just be down to the articles themselves. To understand why he did these things, or what he was involved in, and what the dynamics were, you need to learn the events themselves. Because as you heard, I just said a load of different events, didn't I? So what was he involved in? What did I say? Apart from when he was young and other things, because his brother faked his own disappearance, faked his own kidnapping, and ran off with an underage schoolgirl. Well, that's a good one. And he was in Harvard at the center of when the New World Order was being created at Harvard, the Kissingerian time of Harvard, I think Kissingerian, but Kissinger's time at Harvard. he was there. So that's very interesting. But I just mentioned Watergate, the assassination of Martin Luther King, Wounded Knee, Kent State. I mentioned Orlando Letelier. I mentioned the Iran-Contra, October Surprise, and Jeffrey Epstein. So you've got just those, and within it, there's a load of other things as well. Within these stories, there's a load of other things that happen. But you've got all of these things, and if you take them in all as a massive article, or you take them in as a big documentary, it's really hard sometimes to keep the information or understand the context of the information and why it's important. It's also hard for me. I always, we all know loads about Watergate. We all know loads about Martin Luther King. We all know loads about this or loads of that. We recognize the Kent State Massacre footage being played in a movie like Forrest Gump or something. They'll play footage of something in the background, and we go, "Oh, we know that's a massacre that happened at some American high school." But the context of certain parts of these events are often lost to us. We're often unable to really know what happened, but we feel we know what happened. Yet when we investigate it, we discover the nuance within it, that we go, "Oh, that's why people say this," or "Oh, that's why people say that." And now a lot of us are very lazy. And that has become more and more clear as we've risen technologically speaking, as we've become more technologically advanced, we've become lazier. Instead of becoming more productive and better and more intelligent and having better training and learning tools, and so using it that way, we've become people who like very quick information stuck in our brain, wrapped up in a bow, in pastry, as I say with NEWSPASTE, meat wrapped up in a pastry, nice little bow on top, given to us in our proverbial minds, and we just stick it in there and we walk away. Now, I would like to argue against why that's a thing and say that it shouldn't be a thing, but it is a thing. We are all interested in, and maybe it's because we don't have all of the time in the world to concentrate on things. A lot of us are busy. A lot of us got family, friends, other things that we do, work. So, a lot of people want things that are short. And so it's really hard to try and, when you're writing long form articles, 7,500 to 10,000 words, it's very hard to attract these people over there who like really short things. And the majority of people are those people. So I'm giving my work out to people, and the only people who are reading them are the people who are willing to sit down and do a lot of reads. So yeah, they'll go maybe watch a news hound. They'll watch the news hounds on, like, the Pottinger Identity news hound is like 2.5 hours long. The Pottinger Supremacy is about 3 hours, and one of them is about 3.5 hours, something like that. So they're big watches, It's hard to attract people in, especially younger people. There's just no way. Yeah, I know there's a load of thirst, but it's also the presentation of it. A lot of the time, it's people showing you pictures that are slowly zooming in while speaking in script style, and that doesn't really work. It doesn't really help the mind take something in. It's like, doesn't sprinkle the sugar on top to make it easily digestible, you could say. It makes it boring. A lot of the YouTube videos I watch are boring, and I don't mind being bored. I don't mind it if I'm getting the information I want. I'm fine with that, but loads of people aren't, and I've got to accept that. And so I designed this series, Searching for Stanley, to be something really special, where I can link it up. I can use them. I was talking to a couple of people before about doing a project, and it's a lot of work, and I think it's something that I'll eventually do. But I think I'm already doing it. I think this is it, and this will never end. That's at the moment. There's no end. At the moment, there's 4 series of Searching for Stanley, with about 7 episodes that make up a 2-hour plus documentary movie. So there's sections, and each of them are broken up into sections of between 18 to 28 minutes, and dependent on how big the subject is, of course, but basically within that area. And within there, you'll be able, instead of looking for Stanley Pottinger, instead of just it being about Stanley Pottinger, it's about the event he's taking part in. So each of the episodes, so there's a Watergate episode, there's a Wounded Knee episode, there's a Martin Luther King episode, there's an Orlando Letelier episode, there's a Gloria Steinem episode, and there's a Who is Stanley Pottinger episode. And so each of these episodes will then make up the movie entire. So they work on their own, and each of them have their own soundtrack. I've been synthing. I've got the old synth out and my little synth keyboard, and I've been getting the samples down, and I've been looking for the good sounds, and I've been checking out all of the different basses and the drums, and I've been making synth galore. I'll tell you, I've been using the Land R synth plugin a lot through this, because it's so simple to use. But also, I mean, I've been a musician now for over it's 25 years. Over 25 years I've been a musician, and some of that was playing all of the time in bands. So I mean, I can crack out a tune, especially a synth tune, at high speed. I'm a bit of a synth master, it seems. And I really enjoy it, because I can sit down after doing production for hours and hours and hours, after doing loads of other stuff. I can sit down for an hour and a half, and I can crack out a couple of tunes. Sometimes nothing comes. Sometimes I'm just messing around for an hour and a half, but sometimes I write 3 songs in an hour. And so that is really prominent. I think people will notice that there's an element of Adam Curtis about these documentaries. Some of it I don't speak. I have to explain story. I have to try and get you to understand things in a certain way. So I have to speak, of course, but I'm doing it in different ways. Either I'm coming in just as and these are the things that are happening, and it's just a link between, or there's a separate piece to the reason why I'm interrupting the rest, because the rest really is me. And this takes a lot of time to source clips and then put them in an order that isn't just lazy, really tells you how the feeling was at the time. So Watergate, for instance, the beginning of Watergate, it really, I go through 2 years in a matter of probably 10 minutes, less than that, of just music. And it's just music and clips, and it makes sense. It rides really well. And I'm learning as I'm going along. Of course, I mean, with Watergate, is so big, such a big, wide-ranging scandal, so many elements to it, that a lot of people, where do you start? Well, you start by learning everything about it, and then looking for the things that will explain why, and the atmosphere, and why certain events happened during that time. Because this is Searching for Stanley, each of these will show how Stanley Pottinger was involved. But for instance, with Watergate, you'll also get to see inside the Justice Department where Stanley Pottinger was working, and a lot of the crazy events around the Saturday Night Massacre, and this like obvious, like really completely like Watergate was just it was just a roller coaster. For people watching on the outside, it was a roller coaster. A lot of people inside would just suddenly hit with something that would happen and would be shocked. And there's a lot of people who say that, like, you know, John Dean, who speaks a lot about Watergate, he's actually in the Kent State Massacre. Some of his Watergate hearing is actually will be in the Kent State Massacre part of this. But John Dean said that in Watergate, no one really knew that it was rolling out of control. It was just the events kept happening, and they kept dealing with them, and then it got to a point where they were like, "Okay, this is just way too big." Now, to deal with that and to make people understand what the event was like within 20 minutes is difficult, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. The art form, documentary art form, music, the way editing works, you know, you don't have to put too much explainer on the screen. Really, the events as they happen, seeing people reacting to them, it gives you an idea of what it was, how it was, and you will understand that. So I feel really accomplished by how how this documentary has been coming together, how these pieces have been coming together, because I keep calling it a documentary, but in the same way, it's a documentary series. In the same way, I'm looking for clips around. I'm putting in my own stuff as well, but a lot of this is me putting everything in chronological order, all of the source material in chronological order, and letting you make up your own mind. That's really important. And I think everybody will be able to see that by the end of it, once you put it all together, you get certain definite facts. You get definitive events. You get truths. You get a sense of the buzz of what it was like. You get a feeling of the confusion of these events, and you get an understanding of how Stanley Pottinger was vital in all of these events in different ways. And of course, using Stanley Pottinger as a string to pull you through some of the most famous events in history is that's the clever thing. That's the point of it is that if I just came here and was like, this is what happened at Kent State, and this is what happened at Watergate, and this is what happened with Martin Luther King's assassination, then you would be like, oh yeah, all right, well, we've heard some of this before. But this is about following how Stanley Pottinger's fingerprints are on each of these events, and from the contextual sort of perspective of the events themselves. And that is a really important like journey. I like I say, a bit of a roller coaster. You kind of go streaming. The episodes start and the music is loud in your face, editing constantly. There's lots of stuff happening. It is a roller coaster, and so far the reaction I've had has been 100% positive about the direction it's going. And so that is, I've still people saying, "Oh, look, you made a mistake here, or you made a mistake there," because I'm editing as I go. But a lot of this has already been prepared because I've been writing these articles and researching this subject, and all of the different nuances within each of the sub subjects that are involved in the main subject. And it's I've already put in all of the work. So it's very easy at this stage to put it all together, because all I'm doing is going and looking for the best way to describe it visually. And I know that sounds difficult. It actually sounds difficult, but I've had years of experience of doing that now. So I feel very confident with it. And this is as soon as I started out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna, I'm a songwriter. I believe in setting things out in a format, so that you can, you got an intro, you got an outro, you got beginning, middle, end, but you got like, verse, chorus, middle eight, maybe, that sort of stuff within it. I do that with articles, and that's why I think having the music side of this to drive it along was so important. And I really I can't stress how exciting it has been to play songs alongside stuff. How about I share with you some of the songs, or at least a preview now. Get ready, baby. Let's see. So I like I say, it's been going now for about I don't know, I say 3 weeks of really hardcore production, and I'm now at the end of nearly all episodes apart from one. And the first episode is going to come out this week, and then the next episode the next week, but you'll already be able to see more if you become a Patreon or if you go into any of the premium YouTube or Rockfin. Now I haven't set up all of the premium things perfectly, but I do have a patron, and I have just my NEWSPASTE channel on YouTube has just been monetized and just been I don't know how well that will go. But I'm not necessarily ever going for views. I'm looking for people who realize what I'm doing and want to support this sort of work. And so there's methods to tip me or buy me a coffee or whatever, so I can keep doing this sort of stuff. Now, I'll give you a little example, a tidbit of this music. So the Wounded Knee episode tackles the standoff at Wounded Knee that happened at the Pine Ridge Reservation, where Lakota Sioux, Oglala Lakota were basically being harassed by a tribal leader, and when they tried to get some sort of justice for it, the tribal governments that have been set up in the US ignored them. And then there was a white man killed, an Indian called Wesley, in near Custer in North Dakota. I think it's North Dakota. And a riot kicked off at the courthouse. People wanted justice. The American Indian movement turned up, and there was violence, and then it turned out into a standoff at Wounded Knee. And Russell Means, who was a spokesman, came down, and I will introduce you to this I've called Means to an End. So this is an example of the type of music you'll hear on Searching for Stanley. Enjoy.
I'm a Dakwepe. Mima Lakota. Imagina hão aqui os ifios pai que lhe resapa aqui. Lilo wakan. Mitaki e ate tashunka witko tios pai. Mitaki e ina. This is a traditional greeting of my people that I am bound to give. This is a traditional greeting of my people that I am bound to give. Albeit, it's a short version. What I said in my own language translate into English thusly.
Hey, listen, white man. Hey, listen. Hey, listen, white man. Hey, listen. I have had all the bullshit from your race as I can take. Hey, listen, white man. Hey, listen.
There you go. There you go. That's called Means to an End. Of course, it's a little bit longer than that. Just 1 minute clip that I've shown you. It's one of about 7-8 songs, and maybe it's about 9-10 now songs that have been written specifically for this. Some of them, of course, I've sampled the actual audio from within the documentary, from some of the clips within the documentary, and it's really important, I find, to mix that sort of media. It makes me want to do it more. I love it when there's some form of musical breakdown, when you no longer have to think words and you can start watching scenes for yourself. And there's a break to that process. You break up that process. I find that really important, revitalizing when trying to take in information. And so I'm not sure if you enjoyed that, not sure if it actually worked, that you could hear it, but if it did, I hope you enjoyed that. It was called Means to an End. And like I say, Russell Means is a very interesting character. Pocahontas' dad in Disney movie in the end. In that sense, he sold out. Some people say he was a narcissist, a complete horrible human being in all of this, but he was inspiring. No one can deny that Russell Means was very inspiring. There's a brilliant clip within the Wounded Knee part of the documentary where he's talking to a congressional hearing about the American Indian movement and American Indians in general. And it's very interesting to see John McCain sitting there looking with disdain at Russell Means, like, who is this guy? How dare he? And it's very much like you get the sense that the dynamic of the white man and the Indian is still alive and well. Now, it's there's some that actually, the Wounded Knee episode, the more I edited it, the more I cried, because there was a couple of points in there where you get to know the characters and you get to know their backstory, and it's really sad. It's also one of the first times I got to see video footage of Stanley Pottinger early on, because I found him hanging around in Wounded Knee. And so that's part of it, I'm building up, and as I'm researching and putting together clips, I'm also looking for clips of this guy who I know is hanging around in each of these events and doing something naughty. And so I'm looking for that guy, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm going through a lot of clips. I'm doing loads of editing. I'm doing a lot of work at the moment. I basically wake up in the morning and start working, and I fall asleep working eventually. And then I wake up in the morning, and I'm not having much sleep. I mean, my son's going to have major surgery this month, so I suppose it's getting me through the mental hardship of being separated from him and knowing that he's going to have major surgery. It helps to, of course, throw yourself into something when hard times hit. So I've possibly been doing a lot of that in 2023, and I'll be glad when this year is over. I can tell you that. Honestly, I will be glad. So the different episodes so far have been really, each one of them have got their own flair. Each one of them has their own soundtrack, like I say, and then together they'll be formed into what will be a 2.5 hour long documentary that will be the first part of Searching for Stanley. And then the second part will do the same. So that'll be the second series. And then the third series will do the same. And so I've already mapped out 4 series, mapped out 3 specifically with research already done. And we're heading towards that. And on the way, I should find a load of other information. But there's loads of stuff happening at the moment, you know. One of the reasons, and the main reason why I started doing the Searching for Stanley documentary was quite simply because it originally when I thought about this documentary, originally it was called something else. It was called Surviving Maria Farmer, because it was really about how I discovered all of this information due to the fact of Maria Farmer, who's one of the supposed Epstein victims, becoming very angry and with myself and a lot of other people, and then discovering that she's not who she says she is, and then discovering that she wasn't in hiding like she said she had been, discovering that a lot of what she said had been lies. It's now spiraled out of control, and I kind of knew this would happen. But that's how I originally got into looking into Stanley Pottinger. For those who don't know, it was the confusion of that, because I had been a supporter of Maria Farmer and all the Epstein victims. Like, without blind, I had been blind. I'd be just like, I agree with whatever you're saying, and I think you're heroes. And I did a load of that with a load of other people. I think we're trained. We're trained very much in our society not to question the victims, or alleged victims. There you go. I even say it there, not to question the victims. We already make them victims. And what we discover is that there's lots of people, when money is involved especially, who lie. They will say they're victims and they're not really victims, and they lie. And they lie often because they see money coming their way and they say, I'm going to try and get some of that money. That's kind of fair. I can understand it. But Maria Farmer shocked me. It led me to investigate her, to try and understand why. If she was, not who she said she was, then who was she and who's she working for? There must be something. Every time I have as an investigative journalist, every time that I have a sense, an example of someone not being who they say they are, I suddenly go, and I better go and find out who they are actually, sorry. And then I go and investigate, and I discover a load of other stuff, a load of nefarious stuff. That's what happens every time. You find one nefarious person lying, you go and investigate them, you will find a reason why they lie, and a load of other nefarious people also lying. That's just the way it is. That's why investigative journalism is actually so easy. No one does it because they're all too busy trying to make their trying to stay within each of their little social boxes, little social groups, little social boxes. Like, I would like to explain that more, but that would be very hard to explain what I mean by that. I've try and give you I think that a lot of people who read independent stuff, and you could say worship independent media people, what I've discovered is that they actually worship the things they say they hate. So the exact people they're loving do the exact thing they're railing against, and those people will defend their icons, that these perfect heroes that they've made of these people. They will defend them, and they will fight anybody. If anybody at all says that they're wrong, they will get angry. Now, a lot of those people who have chosen their perfect hero in the independent media are indistinguishable from the people who have chosen their heroes in the mainstream media. Those heroes can be found out to be completely wrong. to be nefarious, to be working for other people, to be working for a different agenda. And they'll still hold on. They'll just say, double down. Nearly every single person doubles down. Once they've chosen their hero, they double down. And so I'm seeing... Want to come up here, little doggo? Sorry, my dog. I know it's not very professional to have a dog in the podcast room, but yeah, my dog's in the podcast room. So people double down. They double down. We know people double down. They can't stop themselves. They are just desperate to say, I was right to support this person. I've never supported anybody who is wrong because that would make me wrong and I cannot be wrong. And that's sort of like, really so frustrating. It's the majority of what's going on. The majority of the reason why people make extremely bad choices of who to follow, because they're very busy choosing people who are not after their best interest. They're not looking to solve problems or give them information or help make the world a better place. They help put their money in the pocket. They're desperate to get some money and they want your money. And so people like me, I spent ages not asking for any help. And all I learned that does is mean that I have no money, and all of the people who are money grabbers, are all got all of the money, and they're not doing anything. And so I tell you what, you invest in me, and you will see me do stuff. So my supporters, the people who have helped me on Patreon and other platforms, will have credits in Searching for Stanley, because I without those people, I would be dead in a ditch. I would have nothing. There's been a fair few times where me being bust or not is all dependent on my patrons and the people who are helping me out, because I'm doing work which isn't for anybody apart from the ether, for all of us. And this I gotta work out how to monetize it properly. But out there, the majority of people are just money grabbing, and as soon as people have paid their money, then that's their double down token, isn't it? I've paid them money. I don't want to ever discover that they're not who they said they are. But loads of people are not who they said they are. The majority of the media is made up by grifters. We know this. Both mainstream and independent. Grifters. And there's been some big grifts on the independent scene too. I can't remember what that girl's name was. She set up a load of stuff, got a load of like fundraising, and just stole everybody's money. It just makes no sense either. It's like, okay, you could do that once, but then what are you going to do? Be hated? You'll never be able to get back on anything later on, because everybody will know you for the person who stole from people. It's terrible. So with me, the difference you'll get is that I'm someone who will give back in work massively. I am doing double the amount that anybody else around will be doing. So if you support me, you will be acknowledged for your support, and you will see more work happen. So Searching for Stanley, that is because I have enough supporters. I've been able to concentrate a bit of time, but I need, if I'm going to keep up this level of content creation that's really, really, really unique, and helps people get the information in their head, I do need support. So I am at that point where I'm just like, I'm swimming around. I'm hoping to find something that I can do that allows me still to do all of this stuff on the side as well. But if I can get support for just doing this stuff alone, then I would be dedicating all my time to it all of the time, every single minute, every single day, kind of like I'm doing now, but don't tell anyone. So Searching for Stanley is on its way. It's on its way. It's coming very soon. And so there will be more. There will be more NEWSPASTE podcasts to come as well over that time. I know that the last couple were brilliant. I really enjoyed them. Richard Poe was a very interesting chap. Really liked him. And talking to the guys who Nation of Israel guys at these times, it was really interesting to hear their thoughts on everything. I know that they weren't very happy with my coverage of Palestine Israel conflict. They probably want to say Hamas Israel conflict. That's bull. They weren't too keen on my NEWSPASTEs, I don't think. But I'm not going to change my belief for someone else, but I will hear their opinion and I will listen to them and I will have a good conversation. I mean, we had some good conversations, but it's hard. It's hard when you're talking to someone on the other side of the fence. Sometimes you agree on stuff and sometimes you're on the other side of the fence. Of course you are. But I want to talk to people on the other side of the fence. I started that off, the first person I started with was someone who really believes in a technocracy and getting involved in the political process. And I love him as a person, Jay Fratt. I love him as a person. But that was a perfect person to start off with, someone where it'd be speaking to the other side rather than this inane, everybody speaks in an echo chamber. You have 10 guests that you have on your podcast that you repeat once a month. Like every year you'll have, say 12 guests a year, and they'll always be the same guests every consecutive year after that, just in a different order, sometimes doubled up. Those podcasts are very, very limited. I want to take the opportunities at sometimes if I can get enough funding so I don't have to be constantly trying to scramble to live and sell stuff on and do all the stuff that I'm doing behind the scenes to actually make some money. If I can do that, then I will be putting so much extra time into being able to probably do a weekly plus podcast. When I had the funds, a few past few months have been tight, but before that I was sometimes managing to do 5-6 podcasts a month. I want to do something like that. That's really what I want to do. I want to do it quite a lot. I want to talk to people. Instead, I've been going on a lot of other people's podcasts. So I went on with Courtney Taylor the other day on her podcast. Had a brilliant 3-hour conversation. It was 3 and something hours by the end of it, I think, if I remember correctly. I'm going on to Parallel Mike's podcast again coming up. He likes to do. He said he's such a charmer. He said his favorite people he's had on in the year to have on in December. Such a charmer. He's beautiful, man. I love him deeply. I have to say, he's a very nice character. He's very real, and he said some very nice things during very hard times in my life to me behind the scenes. And I like him very much. So I'm trying to talk with everybody who wants to speak about stuff. And often people want to speak about, especially nowadays. I mean, Kissinger's dead. This is the week. It's been a week. It's been within this week, hasn't it? That Kissinger died. Still managed to which was good for content creation in a sense, because I've been doing the read throughs. So that's one of the other things that I'm looking to do a lot more of. Not only do my own read-throughs, but do read-throughs for other people's work. So I also did read-throughs of Ian Davis's Some Call It Conspiracy Theories, part 1 and 2. I'll be doing more of that. I'll probably be doing a Dan Fournier read-through. His articles are immensely long. Some of it is very much more esoteric than I go for. But I kind of, like I say, I like to dip my toes in all of the parts of the pond and to see where the water's warmest, you could say. I love to mix and match and hear other people's views, and I learn so much from people who I don't necessarily agree with everything they say. And Dan Fournier is not necessarily that person. Nearly everything he says I agree with. I don't necessarily agree with the reasons why he thinks they happen, so we're in agreement with almost everything. It's just the causes of those things maybe we'd be in disagreement with, and maybe that would just be because of my own religious perspective and his own religious perspective. But otherwise, fundamentally, good and evil, we kind of believe we agree on. And we agree on lots of other things too. Lots of other things. So there's lots of read-throughs happening, and the Pottinger read-through have been really it's been important. I realize that people really want that. Okay, so I understand that a lot of you guys, and I'll probably be putting a lot of these read-throughs out on the podcast. On a podcast, I'll be doing a separate one for like Johnny Vedmore read through podcast, where I just put the read throughs up, because I can be doing 2 of those a week easy. And again, those are an hour to an hour and a half reading through articles. Listen, when it says at the top of these sites, they add the little like how long it takes to read the article. It's like 16-minute read. Oh, we're I don't even know how they calculate it. It's just such. I know from website design that it's just a widget that you stick in there, and it just like imagines that many words is going to take that amount of time. I have no idea how they calculate it, because it takes me say 45 minutes to read through the bulk of an article that they say it takes 20 minutes to read through or 15 minutes to read through. And I'm not including all the time I'm talking about other stuff there. I'm cutting it down to the time it actually takes me to read the article. So I just always find that silly. I think there's a lot of this. We're being told, oh, this should only take you this long to do. And it's like, it's just, no one's arguing against it. They're just like, oh, we've been told that, so it must be normal. That must be what everybody does as well. Everybody takes that long to read it. I'm abnormal. And, you get a lot of that. Around where you start to think that you're the abnormal one. So much of it that you start to realize, wait a minute, it can't be that abnormal. Look around at everybody else. They read slower than me. Doesn't make any sense. So, I've been doing a lot of the read-throughs. I'm doing the Black Hand read-through. So I've already started off with the first with Esmeralda Gulan, and I got the first 2 Pottinger read-throughs done. And I did a read-through of Theresa May's father. And I'll probably do the Epstein 101 series. And some of the other articles that I've done, especially, the ones that interest people the most seem to be the Epstein ones, of course. Of course they like it. But Nicole Youngkerman, she's got it coming. So she'll definitely get the read-throughs. And like I say, I'll be releasing those in audio format. So if you want to actually listen to any of these articles. Now, also, if you want to suggest some articles for me to read, and I won't do mainstream ones. Depending, I mean, there's 1 or 2 every like once a year. There'll be like a mainstream article that hits the nail on the head and has no bias. It's very rare. I'd be happy to read those through, but really, I'm looking for independent articles. I'm looking for independent writers. I'm looking to read through people's work. If you think that people, my audience, and other people will benefit from a certain read through, then tell me and I will do it. Well, I will try and do it. It depends which one it is. But if it makes sense and if it's a reasonable request, then there's no problem at all. I will do it. I'm also very interactive. So if you want to come become a Patreon, you even down to the £4 or £5 a month level, you'll still have complete access to having a conversation, one-to-one conversation with me, and trying to persuade me, hey, I want you to do a read through of War and Peace. Can you do that, please? And I'll say no, Not at the moment. Let's wait until I'm in my 70s, shall we? And I've got that sort of time. Doggo. So the read-throughs are going to continue. So read-throughs, news theory, NEWSPASTE, order everything when it gets back onto the NEWSPASTE podcast, and the Searching for Stanley is basically the group of programs that I make, that I'm putting out and are going to continue to put out, along with the clips, of course. Also, I will say there is another thing that I'm doing, which is, as I'm going through these documentaries, I'm finding films and series that are really bad sound. They've got awful sound quality, really bad sound quality, like terrible. You can barely like it's doing that. It probably doesn't come out on the Zoom. But it's basically lots of hiss and lots of really bad stuff. Well, I've been restoring the audio on some stuff. So, Bravehearted Woman, the anime Aquash story. Now, I could only find that with such a hiss behind it. The technique that I use to restore the audio does take out some of the songs or the music in stuff, but it makes it actually manageable to listen to, so you can hear the words, rather than it being a loud hiss over the top. So I'm trying to do a bit of that too, and I'll be uploading some of that to NEWSPASTE YouTube. Whether they get taken down for copyright or not depends on whether there's copyright attached to any of these, but a lot of the sources that I'm talking about are ones that are probably not copyright or copyrighted, or not efficiently copyrighted. So we'll just be up on NEWSPASTE for you, NEWSPASTE YouTube for you to listen to or watch if you want. Along with the Searching for Stanley documentary, however, comes a new set of issues, because this, as I go deeper into being able to communicate this information directly to people, more people are going to understand that the second Epstein case, was a fix, and it was set up, managed, and not completely true. People are going to start realizing that more and more, because they'll take it in short form, and they'll be able to watch like a catchy 20-30 minutes, something that explains a really vital part to it, and it will blow them away, and they'll go, oh my god, that changes the whole idea of what the case looks like. That will bring new problems. Now, I knew that when I was going to be exposing Stanley Pottinger, that would undermine the Epstein case, and they knew that I was writing the articles. They got wind of it. Stanley Pottinger split up from the Edwards Pottinger law firm, split about 2 weeks before the articles were due to come out. And since then, as I said would happen, the alleged victims have slowly started turning on each other. Now, the named victims are the hardest ones. A lot of them, of the named victims, worked in Jeffrey Epstein's enterprise, and so were basically breaking the law at times. Some of them were completely down with the enterprise and were happy to be breaking the law, and others were less complicit, didn't realize the extent of what was happening, or were trapped within it, and unable to get out. Defining which one's which is very hard. That's very hard to define which one's which. But eventually everything will get easier to understand. because people expose themselves. They expose themselves once, and it's hard for them to get any sort of credence back, and people won't give them any the same sort of respect a second time round. Once bitten, twice shy, and all that. Well, that is very true when it comes down to certain alleged victims. They have run themselves ragged. So everybody knows that I've said it out loud in this podcast too. Maria Farmer, who's one of the alleged Epstein victims, apparently molested by Epstein when she was in her mid-20s, and she was like, "Oh, I don't understand what's quite happening. I'm being laid down on the bed," and it tells this fantastical story that sounds like a completely out of character and profile to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. They don't groom a 24-year-old like they're a child. That's never happened in any of the stuff. But her sister was touched once and locked herself in the bathroom. So her sister was assaulted, you could say. But Maria Farmer, she said she had been in hiding for the entire time, and she had to go into hiding because she feared for her life. Turns out she wasn't in hiding at all. She was actually doing art shows in New York with the exact people who are Epstein's mates. So she was doing the Take Home and Nude with her mentor Eric Fischel in, I think it's about 2006, 2007. And Guggenheim's there, Epstein's mates, lots of various people who are all in the circles, and there's no way she is in hiding, but she claimed to have been in hiding. Then once she got exposed over and over again, and once people had discovered she was lying. Listen, people used to give her interviews all the time, and I know loads of different people who used to give her interviews who say, "Oh my God, I don't even respond to her now because she's just scary." She's had most of her accounts banned from harassing and abusing people to a level that is just, it's systematic abuse. She has been horrible, tried to bully some people to death, you could say. And it appears that she's only getting worse. Now, went out with Stanley Pottinger. That's how I got into the Pottinger series, is that I looked at Maria Farmer's behavior, said, "My God, she's attacking me." And then I went down that road and discovered that she had been registered at FAE, part of a legal federal anti fraud enforcement company, private legal firm with Stanley Pottinger and others in 2017. So she was already not in hiding. She's working with Stanley, and she's having a relationship with him at that time. So that led me down a rabbit hole that made me discover that Stanley was CIA. If I follow Stan Pottinger, then I suddenly discover he's involved in all these events, and he's CIA. So that's how Stanley Pottinger got outed. Got outed because of Maria Farmer's behavior. That is telling. If you follow one person who's acting erratically and it leads you to one of the biggest fixes in history, then the person you followed who's acting erratically has to be viewed with great suspicion. And now it's too late for Maria Farmer. She's attacking everybody, including attacking other alleged victims. So Sarah Ransom has been publicly attacked by Maria Farmer, Maria Farmer is now claiming she's autistic. She basically, she's constantly lying. When she gets herself in too much crap, then she lies even more. So she was attacking Sarah Ransom and saying, like, she's gone all out on her now. But the surprise is Virginia Giuffre, potentially the most well-known out of all of the alleged Epstein victims. Virginia Giuffre has come in and defended Maria Farmer over and over. Does not make sense at all. It says that there's a big case, there's something big going on down there. People are scrambling. The legal firms are all crapping themselves, and there's talk that some of them are now starting to look to sue the legal teams of David Bowie and others who come up in the Pottinger ultimatum. And of course, I already knew that this was all coming because I already outed them all. So I've been watching as this has been developing over the past 6-7 months, and it's gone exactly as I thought it would go. These terrible grifting legal guys and these terribly grifting women like Maria Farmer are aiming to get as much money as possible off the backs of a load of abused people, really people who suffered. Now, Sarah Ransom has been through a load of stuff, and now she's in a situation where she's getting attacked by Maria Farmer, and it must be really worrying to discover that you've been involved in a CIA cover-up and that the person who's attacking you went out with someone who she knew was CIA. That must make you feel that, is my life actually safe? Am I safe? Because there was another Epstein victim who's died recently, I heard, and who it wasn't reported for like 2 weeks. So there's element it's far enough from the operation and from the death of Jeffrey Epstein, from the court case now, that they can start doing cleanup, and that means people will die. That's what I think. I think Epstein victims are going to be murdered. Some of them for being involved, making money out of the case, and the bad people have to cover it up now. So this has been a money-making exercise, but it's also been an exercise in control of information. And now the people with the most information are the most insecure and are the ones who are most likely to be attacked. So you're going to see lots of things happen over the next few months. And I would suggest that all of the people who are innocent within that make as much noise as possible. Make as much noise as possible. You don't want to stop making noise, because the more noise you make, the more protected you are. I'm surprised, really super surprised by Virginia Giuffre and some of her reactions over the past few months. I think the whole case is falling apart. If the mask is dropping on the most famous of the alleged Epstein victims, there's a problem within the Epstein case. Something's happening, and I think the thing that's happening is the legal teams are falling apart. Stanley Pottinger's in his 80s. David Bowie's is approaching his 80s and retiring. They were chosen because they're really old and they won't be held accountable. And the Brad Edwards has already gone. Oh, quickly, I'll say that Stan Pottinger looked like he was CIA over and over again in Relentless Pursuit, his book. And then I'll pretend it didn't happen. Oh my God. So they're all scrambling now, and you're going to see lots of weird stuff happen. If you noticed, a lot of the Epstein stuff over the past 6 months have been things like the Jamie Dimon case, the JP Morgan stuff, the things about people like Noam Chomsky using Epstein to I want to say launder $270,000, I think it was, dollars. Move. The press called it Noam Chomsky asked Epstein to move his money, whatever that means, which means avoid tax avoidance, isn't it? Move. Will you move this money? Oh yes. Why can't you move it? because they'll take some of it, and I don't want to lose any. So I prefer to give you a paedophile, the child trafficking, intelligence gangster-like fixer money instead, because I'm Noam Chomsky and I'm a really nice guy. So lots of people can say, oh, he didn't know any better. Noam didn't know any better, but he's going to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, you've got to be like linked up with some bad people to end up with Epstein, or some big people to end up with Epstein. So there's some things in that case, in the Epstein case, that are really, really interesting and are about to fall apart as well, that I haven't talked about. The Steve Bannon tapes. Steve Bannon, I think it was about a year ago now. It must have been about December last year that Steve Bannon first released a little footage of him talking to Epstein, and he says he's got days of tapes, like some crazy amount of hours of tapes or something. Makes no sense why he got them and why Jeffrey Epstein would speak to him. So it's got to be like an insurance thing, and it feels like now that's a form of compromise that Steve Bannon's able to use on other people. Like, oh, Jeffrey Epstein talked about you, didn't he? Oh, yeah. You want to support my campaign. Maybe that's going on. Maybe. Not saying it is, but maybe that's going on behind the scenes. Because if Steve Bannon ain't releasing it, then he's certainly doing something with it. He's certainly using it as some form of currency, isn't he? So that's really suspicious. Steve Bannon not releasing that says that he is dirty as hell. Says he is dirty as hell, but everybody already knows he's dirty as hell, so it doesn't matter anyway. Now, that's the Epstein case. Sealed up. Next year is going to be a bloody time in the Epstein case, in my opinion. I think there's going to be death. I think people are going to die. I think people got involved in the wrong thing. They really thought they were people. Every generation thinks they're different from the last and thinks they're more protected, or it's not going to happen to them, and it always happens to them. So if they think they're going to just like get away without people getting silenced, you're very wrong. You're very wrong. That could go for journalists too. So maybe I'm not long for it as well. But there's going to be a lot happens on the Epstein case, and I think it's going to be bloody year. It's going to be 2024. But there's a new year coming, isn't there? And there's lots going to happen in this new year. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you directly today. Listen, I told you about Searching for Stanley. I've got loads of different projects coming up in that sense, but I'm going to be concentrating on certain articles over the next year that are extremely important. And some of them are related to the elections, past elections, and to the parties involved in elections, and to some of the people who are running for elections next year. And some of it is unknown stuff that is really, really important, really will like blow your mind away. So next year is going to be in a really exciting time. I have to admit that I am being headhunted by a few different people at the moment. There's different people who are either offering me work or buzzing around asking me if I will, but are scared to actually get involved because, I'm a truth teller. And so truth doesn't pay that much money except for in certain areas. And so those are the areas where basically I've got to apply my trade. And there's not much of that. But there should be some big things happening next year. And I think the more professional work that I push out, like the news theories and like the Searching for Stanleys and like the articles, the more likely something big is going to happen. And when I say big, I'm not like chasing rainbows or anything, because I'm still going to be down to earth. But I do think that there's only a certain amount of time that their censorship can hold before the large amount of work that I put in pays off, because I put in a load of work, so it's hard to hide it all. Now, if you put in my name on YouTube, it tends to be like lots and lots and lots of different options, and so I hope people can go, and that's not necessarily a good tool to measure my success, is how many videos you find on YouTube when you put in. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of content out there now on other people's channels as well. So it is a lot going on. And I thank you for coming and listening to the podcasts and getting involved. Like, so even if it's a comment, a like, I mean, support aside, like I need all of the help I can, because I am a lot of the time screaming into the void, just due to the fact that the algorithms really mess you up, and on top of that, they really don't want my voice to come out. The whatever happens, I'm going to keep going on unless I get killed. I'm going to continue my best to try and explain to people some of what's gone on in loads of different ways. So if you want to support that, then you can. If you think that there's something in particular I should be looking at, get involved. Come tell me. You can find contact form on NEWSPASTE.com and on JohnnyVedmore.com. Now, in the next month or so, I'll have some brilliant people on the podcast, and we'll be rocking and rolling again, talking with many wonderfully interesting people out there on the independent media. And in general, I want to try and expand a little bit. So I am working on some bigger names coming to talk to me. It's just a little bit hard. A lot of it, you've got to do something or prove something to get someone to come on, and then it's a rolling ball. You get the ball rolling enough, you get the right people on, then you'll encourage other people to go on. So I've got to, there's something's got to give, but I do believe that the next year I'm going to talk. What I love about the NEWSPASTE podcast is I don't know who I'm going to speak to. I ask people when I find people who are interesting and make me interested in what they have to say. In using that as a guide means that I can basically choose what is interesting and of the time, rather than look to fulfill my own quota or tick sheet of people that I think that I know on a scene that I can get onto a podcast. So that's all very good, but I want to talk to a wide range of people. And I think you want to hear that as well. I think you want to hear about a load of different weird stuff. So if you've got someone in mind that you think would say, yeah, all right, then I'll have a conversation, and you think it'd be worth it, again, like anything else, tell me. I'm really interactive, super interactive. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Vedmore, Johnny with a H, JohnnyVedmore. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, all of that, but LinkedIn. But you definitely on Twitter. You can find me on NEWSPASTE.com, on JohnnyVedmore.com. You can use the contact form, and you can tell me, I want you to do this, and I will consider it for sure. If you come and support me, you get one-to-one. You can talk to me. You can talk to me all night long. No, you can't talk to me all night long. I've got a load of work to do. But we can have conversations, because I do like having conversations with people. I love it. Love having conversations with people. And I think there's a lot to be said at the moment, isn't it? We're really, really, we're rocking and rolling. We have got, it's every, psyop after psyop after psyop. So we just done the Gaza Strip psyop. Yeah, and they're just destroying it now, bit out by bit. What's going to happen next year? what's going to happen in the new year. Every turn of the new year, we have a new thing start, a new ball rolling. So this one's going to be a new one. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's probably going to be horrible, like all of the rest of them. So we all need to be together. We all need to concentrate on bettering our humanity, ourselves, our neighborhoods, our families, giving people information, letting people know. Don't when these people expose themselves, when the powers that be are exposing themselves, don't look a gift horse in the bloody mouth. Take it, show it to the people who don't like to see the establishment exposing itself. It's so easily done now. It's so easy to show them for what they are. And then you're able to see who will be bothered and who won't be bothered when you go and tell people. If you go and tell people, look, this person's awful, and look at their actions, and they go, I don't care. And there's just no point. It's just no point. It's no point in pushing someone who just doesn't care until they care. And they won't care until they care. You can't to make them care by screaming and shouting at them. You've just got to keep poking away at the moments where it's most important and most vital, and you can see it the easiest. You see it the best. It is the most obvious. And I think it sounds a bit cryptic when I talk like that, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the information that you're not allowed to talk about on the mainstream. Whenever you get an opportunity to pull back the curtain and see the organ grinder going at it, see Oz himself hanging around, then do it. Do it. Why not? Why not? Every opportunity to pull back that curtain, pull back that curtain. That's what we do around here. That's my job. So, thank you for bearing with me. And I know I may have just rambled on about a load of what's going on, but this is what's going on. This is what's happening. I'm just being, this is an episode, an update to tell you, NEWSPASTE Podcast will be back very soon with a new range of guests. Some of them are going to be extremely interesting. I'm hoping some of them are going to be really, really like quite spicily large names for my site. One person in particular I really want to get on, and he said he will just after he's done a certain amount of other things. So hopefully that I get to see a lift in the standard of guest. I say that all my guests have been wonderful so far. I've loved them. I'm not sure I've had anybody on who I haven't enjoyed talking to, because I've chosen them by who I enjoy. I think I'd enjoy speaking with, or I'd enjoy picking their brains about their side of the fence. That's it. NEWSPASTE Podcast got to be about going. It's got to be about going across the border and talking to the other side. I keep wanting to do that. That's what I keep wanting to do, and that's what I'm doing. So that will continue. That's me for today. That's Johnny Vedmore. That's the NEWSPASTE Podcast for today. And listen, hey, if you want to support me, please do support me. I need your help. You can support me on Patreon. You can buy me a coffee. You can find links to both of those things on newspaste.com, or on the drop-down menu, johnnyvedmore.com. You can find links to the buy me a coffee or to Patreon. And you can become a YouTube subscriber nowadays on NEWSPASTE channel. So go do that. If you can, do it. Help me out, and I promise you, I not only won't forget you, but you'll also become you'll be named in Searching for Stanley as one of my supporters, because I need all the supporters I can get, all of them. Now I'm gonna leave you. Ooh, I'm not gonna leave you, really. I'm never gonna leave you. Deep down, I'm not gonna leave you. But I'm gonna leave you with and play you out with a song called Thumping Wong, which is also from the Wounded Knee episode of the Searching for Stanley documentary. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy what is about to come out. If you want to already see what's going on, you don't even have to just become a $5 Patreon subscriber, and you get to see everything early. My patrons have seen the development of this documentary from the start, so they get to see a little bit behind the scenes of the fact of how it starts off and how it develops. So please, if you can, I'm going to leave you with Thumping Wong. Thank you for joining me on the NEWSPASTE Podcast. I'm Johnny Vedmore, out.